Hello and welcome to Talking Books. I'm Jill de Villiers. There is nothing quite like the African bush. For most of us, it is an easy romance, but for conservationists, the magnetic beauty is tempered by dreadful pain and sadness as the animals they care for are threatened by poachers. Joining me today is Francoise Malby-Anthony, who came to South Africa 31 years ago from Paris to marry Lawrence Anthony, the author of the iconic book, The Elephant Whisperer. In March this year, it was 6 years since his passing. During this time, Francoise took full responsibility for the running of the Thula Thula Game Reserve and recently published her book, An Elephant in My Kitchen, co-written with Katja Willemsen. Welcome, Francoise.
Thank you so much, Jill.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Absolute pleasure.
Can we start with why you came to South Africa and when?
I came to South Africa it all started in London waiting for a taxi. That's how I met Lawrence. And I moved in December 1987 and we lived in Durban for 10 years.
And you were very much a city girl before you went into the bush.
Completely. And when Lawrence told me, it was 20 years ago, we're going to go and live in the bush, in a game reserve in Zululand, to work for a big conservation project, a community project with wild animals. I said, okay, why not? Ready for the challenge.
Were you scared?
Yeah, well, I don't think I knew where I was going.
So when you started that, you also made a reserve with chalets and it became a luxury resort.
That's right. We built a safari lodge in 2000 and the luxury tent camp in 2006.
And that was your responsibility?
That's right, exactly.
And when did the animals come into your life?
The animals came into 1999, August 1999. The herd of elephants, 7 elephants arrived in August. And they escaped, and then we got them back. And they're here for good. So we started with 7 elephants.
But that was quite a drama, to bring them there and they escaped. How did you feel at that stage?
Well, it was like one of the many challenges that we're going to have to encounter with Lawrence, with Thula Thula.
Okay, one of the elephants that came there was Nana.
That's right.
And you were scared of her at the beginning or worried about the relationship and then you became very good friends? Or is this the wrong one I have?
It's Frankie.
Frankie. Oh, Frankie. Yes. Sorry, my apologies.
Nana is a beautiful nature, warm, motherly. She was a matriarch when she arrived and she's full of wisdom. I mean, she's a wonderful nature. Frankie, she's more, let's say, wild, more bold and wild and more intimidating.
So Frankie took over from Nana when Nana became blind. She had a cataract in her eye.
That's right, yes.
And that is when you started getting scared of her. Did she attack you or almost attacked you?
Well, you know, it was it's when Lawrence and I, we were on that four-wheeler motorbike and she attacked us and we thought we were going to die. Lawrence and I, that day was, it is well described in The Elephant Whisperer, but as well in An Elephant in My Kitchen. Because this is the kind of moment you never forget, when you're about to die, killed by an elephant charging you, and that was Frankie. Yeah. So since that day, I was a little bit wary of her.
And that really affected you for many years, and you only realized much later on that it wasn't actually Frankie that you were scared of.
That's right. It was Numzan, who was the blue-eyed boy of Lawrence. Lawrence loved, he was one of our young teenagers when he arrived in 1999, and unfortunately became very violent and aggressive, and was turning around the vehicles, including the one of Lawrence, almost killed Lawrence. So Lawrence took the decision, very harsh decision, to put him down in 2007. And after that, we realized that it's because he had an abscess. So it was very sad. But Numzan was the one, actually, the real reason behind was Numzan. So now, actually, Frankie and I, we are the best friend in the world. She even come into my garden. She just comes and say hello, very close to my house.
Now things changed for you very dramatically when Lawrence passed on and you had to take over the running of the animals as well. Up to that time, you only ran the resort, the safari lodge.
The hospitality side, yes.
Yeah, and then you wanted an animal hospital, an orphanage.
That's it.
And how did the orphanage come about?
How did it come about? You know, when we got, after we lost our last rhino, Heidi, in 2009, she was butchered by poachers. We had the opportunity to get 2 little orphan rhinos, 4 months and 8 months older. We were victims of poaching, Tabo and Tombi. And we realized that what would be ideal would be to create a rhino orphanage or a rhino sanctuary to be able to raise rhinos so that they would be able to be rehabilitated and wild into the game reserve. That's how the idea started.
And it's poaching. It's really, poaching is a really dreadful and terrible thing, and people don't often realize how bad it is. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience and how you had to cope with it, especially with your security? You thought you had excellent security to protect the reserve, and they still broke through.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's true. We had very good security. We had very young animals at the orphanage. I mean, nobody thought that they would come and attack them. The problem, what can you do with guys, 5 guys arriving with semi-automatic rifles, with very heavy, you know, it's organized crime now, the poaching, and this is where it becomes, what can you do? You know, every single game reserve is at war with poachers. Any rhino owners is at risk. I mean, even the horned rhinos get taken by poachers. By game reserves, I know I've got top-notch security and anti-poaching team inside the reserve. So we're all at risk. It's a war.
And they look for vulnerable spots. So if your security is too tight, they'll go to your neighbor.
Well, they go to the neighbor, they come to us, unfortunately 3 rhinos per day are killed in South Africa, so it's a lot. You know, it's to fight this. Even in museums, they go, even in zoos. I mean, if you think about it, it represents so much money that they are ready to anything. It has become organized crime and sophisticated weapons and organizations. So it's a tough one. It's a difficult one.
And they're ruthless. They don't kill the animal always. They sometimes hack the horn off while the animal is still alive, which is
absolutely barbaric. It's got no word to describe what those people are capable of doing.
And the elephants? Are they vulnerable as well to these poachers?
Well, we had a poaching incident a few weeks ago. I mean, they shot at the elephants, but they were not, I don't think they were aiming at the elephants. There was 9 of them who came inside Thula Thula, but 6 got arrested, 2 got badly wounded, 1 got shot dead. So anyway, I think our security company, our security altogether after the orphanage got attacked, we've been increasing tremendously our security system. We've got cameras all around inside the game reserve, inside the rehabilitation center as well. So we have patrolling teams all the time. So I think that now they realize that they mustn't come
and bother you.
Enter the property. I think they've realized that we are ready to fight. And
at the time, just before they actually broke into to the orphanage, you had a little hippo there, and you expressed concern even for the hippo's teeth when he was teething, and his teeth came out. That was even made him vulnerable to poachers because of the ivory in his teeth.
Exactly. Even hippos are at risk now. Elephants, rhinos, hippos, vultures. We've got so many endangered species nowadays in Africa, and I think the only way to fight this is education. Education is the key to conservation and is a key to teach children all the efforts which have to be done in conservation to stop poaching and to make them realize that if nothing gets done now, in 20 years' time there won't be anymore.
So you have started doing an education
program
yes. at the reserve?
Yes, it's a volunteers academy, Thula Thula Volunteers Academy, where we get volunteers from all around the world, but as well from the local communities. And we get children from the local communities as well to come and see Thula Thula, to see our elephants, our rhinos, and those volunteers as well, and then so that they go and spread awareness wherever they go afterwards, to show them all the conservation efforts which have to be done so that to stop.
Now the land that you're using isn't all your own land, it is also tribal land.
Absolutely.
How does the relationship work with the tribal chiefs?
Excellent. We share the same vision and passion for nature and wildlife conservation. We're extremely lucky for this.
And you work very closely together?
Very closely together. We are in partnership with the Volunteers Academy and with the Rehabilitation Center. And for the expansion of Thula Thula as well, for our elephants' habitat, because our elephants now, 29 of them, they made too many babies. So we have to increase the land. We reach our maximum capacity. So we have to increase the land with local community.
I hope you'll be able to increase your land quickly for that. How important is the staff that you work with, the volunteers that you work with?
The volunteers camp has got leaders, so 2 game rangers, Promise and Victor, who've been at Thula Thula for more than 10 years, and we've got an admin manager, and we take a maximum of 8 volunteers at a time. So 1 from the local community who comes for free, and 7 of them come from South Africa, from Europe or America, from wherever, and all the money they pay goes back into conservation. This is just a win-win situation. We educate and inspire people in conservation, and in exchange they pay a certain amount of money, and it also go back into conservation, which means they can see where it's all going.
The community is also very much involved in the lodge itself. Most of your staff comes from the community.
Absolutely. We employ 60 people, and I would say that out of the 60, 85–90% come from the local community that we've trained, and now I've got some of them have been there for 18 years from the beginning and are very good position.
Francoise, it's an absolutely fascinating story. I loved reading the book. I cried. There are so many scenes in this book that is just so moving that I couldn't help but cry in it. And I really recommend, if you care anything about wildlife in Africa, in South Africa, please read this book. My guest is Francoise Malby-Anthony, and her book is An Elephant in My Kitchen. That was it for this edition of Talking Books. Thanks for watching.